Today's show is emergency services physician at Henry Ford Jackson Hospital, Dr. Alan Lazarra. Alan, welcome back.
Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you. It turns out Alan is a expert, national expert, and celebrity doctor to the stars in the current issue of American Hunter, which I want to thank Bob Blank for alerting us on this. This article is all about you.
What?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No.
You haven't even seen it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's all about you. They're quoting Dr. Lazarra talks about tree stand related injuries during hunting season.
Cool.
So you're viewed as a national expert on hunter safety.
Oh, fun. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in that? Because I know you're an outdoorsman.
Yes, try to be. Yeah. Well, I started hunting early on in life, like when I was in grade school, and then with my dad, my godfather, my brother, and then for a while I was into rock climbing, and so I lived in Chicago, and you could only really go indoor gyms. And then I went out west, a number of times to like Colorado and Wyoming, and then really started deer hunting when I was after medical school, and then I was into emergency medicine, and so the outdoors and like climbing trees and all the gear and stuff kind of it seemed like a perfect mesh of all those things that I like. So everybody has a niche in medicine, or they tell you should, because it's a longitudinal string that pulls you through. And so for me, it just became something that I thought, some doctors like talking about pneumonia, some like talking about like the newest way to prevent falls in the hospital, and mine's just a subsegment of people's preventative medicine. So I like it. I'm very passionate about it, and because I think it can make a really big difference in somebody's life. If somebody breaks their back, it's a huge change.
Well,
for them.
You think about hunter safety. You think, oh well, that means getting a heart attack while you're out in the woods, or you're accidentally shooting someone. But those aren't the top injuries.
No, not most commonly. Through that, so I did a research paper during COVID. We finished. It got published in 2021, and it was for Jackson County, and it studied the number of tree stand related injuries we saw coming to our hospital. And we looked at the charts and took all the details down and tried to give you an archetype of who would fall and how. And we found that there was about 6 per 10,000 hunters in Jackson would fall. So there's, the number of, we'll get to that in a second, but the number of hunters that get injured per year by firearms is 1.66 per 10,000. So it's roughly like 3 times as high than somebody getting shot. So, and the injuries are not insignificant. We found people will break their spinal column or their lower extremities, and it requires a significant amount of rehab. We didn't see a lot of paralysis cases, but certainly that's a possibility too. We did see 1 death in that 5-year period.
From a fall.
Yeah, but usually, and then it's obviously like there's some selection bias too, because only a certain type of patient is going to end up presenting like somebody who's still alive, obviously. Usually they don't bring somebody who's died to the department. Sometimes, if somebody's in the middle of dying, but then also, somebody who bruises their leg isn't going to present, to the ER. So we see the kind of middle ground of severity or serious severity as well. Yeah,
and like you say, there's probably quite a few people that do have an injury, they don't come in the hospital at all.
Sure, yeah, so it's self-selecting. So in looking at the number of people who actually fall out of stands, there's a organization through the Consumer Protection organization in the United States government that looks at what vacuum cleaners and blenders are hurting people. And if you want to know how many people go to the ER because they stab themselves while they're opening up an avocado, you can look that up. And so I looked it up for tree stands, and it was it's been declining over the last 15 years, but still about between 4,000 and 3,000 people fall every year in the United States.
That's significant.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. It's not as many as car accidents, but the injuries can be severe. So
I put together some slides, and I know they do present this program. You don't?
Sure. Well, no.
To Hunter.
I do. I thought you said, did I put some slides together? Like, these were from other stuff. Yeah,
No,
the one you just flashed
you-
was the DNR one.
Yeah, you sent over some slides.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
So this, and so part of that interest is looking at what the Michigan Department of Natural Resources puts together every year, and they put together a hunting incident report. And so they will specify what the weapon was, what the game was, where it happened, what the investigation revealed, and they only track injuries with firearms or with like crossbows or bows. They don't actually track tree stand related falls, which is very interesting because, we just said a hunter's 3 times more likely to fall out of a tree and hurt themselves than they are to get shot with a firearm, right? Based off the data. So
Yeah.
it would make sense that we put effort towards figuring out how many people are actually really getting hurt. So this is 2021. All those were firearm injuries, and some of them were fatal, some of them were not. And so that it spills into firearm safety as well. But I'm passionate about the subject, so I'm going to continue to contact the DNR and say, hey, we should change, or maybe I'll write an opinion piece and send it their way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to read the circumstances of these.
Yeah.
Because you read it and you think, what an idiot, what an idiot, what an idiot.
Yeah, when it comes to weapon-related injuries, there's this idea of it's an accidental discharge, and if you talk to somebody who's in the military or is trained with firearms, they don't say that. They say a negligent discharge,
Mm-hmm.
and so because there's always ways to prevent those things from happening, and so we follow the rules of firearm safety, which also apply to using archery equipment in a lot of ways. But yeah, we talk about the Swiss cheese model in medicine when something bad happens. If a patient somehow gets hurt or something goes wrong, and there's a number of circumstances that line up where a number of either coincidental things happen or bad decisions are made, and then an incident happens. So trying to take one of those pieces of Swiss cheese out of the line, you could, save somebody's life or prevent a serious injury.
All right, well, let's talk about specifically tree stand safety. And basically a tree stand, it's something that you put up in a tree, right?
Yeah, there's about 5 different types. There's like a homemade kind that looks kind of like a tree house without a top on it, where people nail wood to the tree. There's ladders that lean up against a tree with a seat on top. There's climbers that are 2 pieces that people use to inch their way up the tree, and then like hang-on stands. And then most recently, they're just essentially using rock climbing equipment called saddle hunters that can kind of swing 360 around the tree. That's the newest version of this. And so it's interesting, the more advanced you get in the equipment and the more advanced you get in the newer kinds of stands, the more safety precautions people are actually taking, because
The more or less?
the more, because if you're using essentially rock climbing equipment, you can't not be clipped into the tree, so people have to wear their harness.
Oh, okay.
But if you're climbing a ladder, you don't necessarily have to wear your harness when you go up, because it's not necessary you just climb the ladder. But
Yeah.
people should be wearing their harness, which is, I put this tree stand safety card together for a presentation I did, and basically says one of the number 1 rules is wear a safety harness every time. Now, every deer stand that you buy comes with a harness in it. It's not the easiest to put on, and it's kind of made of like seatbelt material, that nylon. It's kind of confusing where to put your legs, but you can buy a harness for like $60 on Amazon, or I bought one from Shoepox as well. They're about the same price. But when you talk about the cost of a hospitalization, if somebody comes in, if they fell out of a tree stand, they're probably going to get a CAT scan from their head to their pelvis, and that within an hour you're going to be spending lots and lots of money,
Yeah.
thousands of dollars.
Number 5, avoid use of alcohol and drugs.
Sure,
So-
yeah, that's a no-brainer, yeah.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, but a lot of guys, it's part of the hunting experience.
Yeah,
So of your injuries, your tree stand injuries, how many or what percentage are alcohol involved?
not many. That's another misperception that,
really?
that people who are getting hurt hunting outdoors are intoxicated, kind of the Elmer Fudd version of hunting. But and I also, part of the research paper, I looked at a lot of the research papers that have been written. About 25 of them was pretty much all that I could find. I think all that there is, and the rates vary between 2 and like 10% of people who are falling get are found to be intoxicated. So it's a very small number, and most people don't believe that they're going to fall. And I also found that most people are not wearing harnesses. So I liken it to a seatbelt. You know, my grandfather, when we were younger, didn't really wear a seatbelt, but you know, now he does, and we all do, and it's cool to wear your seatbelt.
Right.
Just like it's cool to wear a bike helmet for my kids now, and I never wore a helmet growing up, but now I do, to set a good example. And this is like the same thing as a seatbelt, because if you get in an accident, you're wearing your seatbelt. I mean, we see amazing saves in the department. We see horrible crashes, and people walk away with just scratches. And then we see the opposite. We see somebody who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and they are maimed for life or dead, and it's terrible. And same thing with tree stand injuries. You know?
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
Bike helmet, if I had a crash this summer, if I hadn't worn a helmet, I could be dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah,
Seriously.
there's a reason people have been saying do that stuff, right?
Yeah. All right, TSRI, it's actually a thing, tree stand related injuries.
Yeah.
And this is part of your PowerPoint that you, I think
Yeah.
it is, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd like to.
Let's go through it.
What I would like to do, my idea is talk to the DNR, and don't tell them this, or anybody this, but talk to the DNR and get this card, put it with your deer tag that you get because they mail you a tag, right? This is a real lo-fi thing. And just mail it, and then it might be one other touch, one other reminder. Because every year they do put energy every year into reminding people to wear harnesses. They put out videos in their newsletter, which is great. You know, because people only take hunter safety, you know, once in their career as a hunter, but we all need reminders about things.
And it's younger people, surprisingly.
Yeah.
You think it's somebody that might, you know, have just, you know,
Yeah.
older people, including me, were more susceptible to falling.
Sure. Younger people tend to be the ones that are a little more risk-taking, I think. And so, like, my father doesn't hunt from a tree stand often. He usually sits in a ground blind. And so, but like my brother and I both, and all the guys I hunt with, all use tree stands. So they're very common. Tree stand sales are probably, tree stands are probably the number one way to hunt deer in the Midwest and the South. So.
All right, firearms. That's another area where injuries occur during the hunting season. Hunting season's already started.
It has.
But not firearms. That's November 15, I believe, right?
Yeah, the general opener is November 15th.
Okay, so there's commandments.
Yeah, that's how we learn it in hunter safety, or 10 rules of firearm safety. But, you know, I've encouraged my children to be outdoor kids and in inside world, you know, in a lot of ways. And some of that involves everything from camping to collecting frogs and flowers, but some of it will also involve hunting. And I've definitely instilled in them already a healthy fear of firearms. And one of the two rules that I tell them, because it's a lot to remember 10 things even for an adult, but number one, the firearm's always loaded. Number two, you need muzzle control. So wherever that thing is pointed, there can't be anything that you're not willing to kill or destroy. So with those two rules, I think people can be really safe. And people rely, I think, too much on this. A lot of the accidents that I read about, people rely too much on the safety function of a firearm. But safety functions don't always work if the gun is dropped, or you know, you fall over a fence or something like that. So really, you should have the firearm unloaded until you're ready to shoot at whatever game.
I wonder if people are, you know, honest too. I think of Alec Baldwin, who claims the gun just went off. With, you know.
Yeah, you're talking about that movie scene.
The movie set. He shot the director of photography.
From what I understand, there was a lot of poor handling of the fire. They have like a firearms master on set, and from the article I read said that it was there was blank cartridges mixed with live cartridges in the set area. There wasn't a lot of safety precautions being taken. That was the New York Times article I read. So, but
well, the incident's still being investigated apparently. So, but it just defies belief that you're just holding a gun and it goes off all by itself while pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, they're tools like anything else. And, you know, I have a healthy fear of my chainsaw. You know, that's one of the manuals I read front to back because it'll take your leg off.
But it just won't turn on by itself.
Just won't turn on by itself. Yeah.
All right. Another slide you brought along, a chart.
Yeah, this is from that that website that puts together, how people are getting injured by what product. And so I searched tree stand related injuries or tree stands. And these are the estimates from 2004 to 2018.
Going down.
Going down, going down, but not enough. We've had a drop in the number of big game hunters in the United States. It used to be like 10.7 million in 2014, and then in 2018 it was like 9.2 million. So we've had a drop in overall hunters, which would lead to a drop in overall likely tree stand injuries. Nonetheless, it's still 3,000 to 4,000 per year.
And you have to cobble together all these data because there's no national database or
No,
collective.
there's not. Yeah, there's not, because the like I said, those are estimates. So what they do is that's a network of ERs, 100 ERs in different counties in the United States, different sizes, different locations, and so they sample every night who comes in with what related injury, and then they bring those together, use statistical analyses, and then magnify that to represent the population. And so it is ultimately an estimate, but it gives them a picture of, like, hey, we need better toasters, or we need better tree stand engineering.
We do need better toasters.
Yeah, right. Toasters are killing people left and right.
Well, they're just not. Really, you'd think the science of toasters would have improved over these years,
Right.
but they're the same.
So much burned toast.
Yeah.
Oh my, right?
All right, prevention. Prevention's always better than the cure.
Exactly, yeah. We're a big believer because, there's that famous old adage, but prevention for tree stand falls. So, of course, wear your harness and don't fall. So pay attention to what you're doing. People usually fall on the way up or on the way down. And usually during bow season, because there's a lot more hours spent in bow stands because there's much more time, because it opened October 1st, goes all the way to January 1st.
Sure.
So, but people typically fall going up or going down, and you should practice, if you were to fall, how would you handle that situation? Because there's mechanisms on these harnesses so you can, so you don't just dangle there, and you can take the pressure off your legs. And I think there's another misperception that people think that, well, if I fall and I'm wearing this harness, it's like the seatbelt, and I'm going to fall into a lake, and then if I'm in the lake, I don't want to be trapped in my car.
Yeah.
That's not really like, there's not a preponderance of those happening. You need to wear your seatbelt.
You're not
But
gonna.
same thing with this. Like, if somebody is suspended for a prolonged amount of time, there's ways to prevent any kind of injury. So you got to keep your legs moving, push off the tree, use the suspension strap that comes with it so you can step on it and take the pressure off your groin area. And then, of course, carry a phone so you can call your hunting party or your wife to come get you out of the tree.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are some areas with bad cell service, but there are satellite phones.
There are, yeah. I recommend that people carry, as a general rule of safety, a cell phone, a whistle, letting people know.
Whistle.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, letting people know where you're going to be, when you're going in, when you're coming out, because if you don't return, then they know to come look for you. There was a guy in Chelsea that the fire department had to go get, I think, a couple of years ago. So that would be not fun.
No.
To have that many people.
Well, especially, I think he went to the store. But,
Yeah. Dangling from a tree in the wintertime is not a fun thing to do.
Well, it's awesome that you've done all this work on tree stand injuries and other hunting-related issues. And hopefully we've helped to keep someone safe this hunting season.
Yeah, tell your friends, tell your partners, tell your grandkids, wear your harness, just like wearing a seatbelt. So if you know somebody that hunts, I think it's a good thing, because, if your grandmother or your wife says, I'd really like you to come home tonight, please wear a harness, that might change somebody's mind.
Good idea.
So, and anytime we see somebody, or at least I see somebody in the department who's wearing camo or it's in season, I'll say, just like a kid who comes in with a broken arm, were you wearing your helmet?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good opportunity. You should really wear your helmet, and vice versa, for hunters too. So
Cool. Great to see you. Thank you.
yeah, thank you very much.
From Henry Ford Jackson Hospital, Emergency Services Physician, Dr. Alan Lazarra.